When I first heard my stepfather's voice, my entire body turned to ice. It wasn't the words themselves initially, it was his tone, that arrogant, alcohol-laden drawl that men use when they believe nobody significant is paying attention. She's worthless dead weight. She never amount to anything. I blinked, my mind struggling to process what I just heard. I had phoned the bank about the mortgage payment, the very mortgage I'd been covering for years, while this parasite lounged around doing nothing. I believed I'd ended the call, but my Bluetooth malfunctioned, and suddenly I found myself eavesdropping on a conversation meant to be private. His laughter followed, the kind that makes your stomach turn. She pretends she's in charge, acts like her life is together, but the moment she stops earning money, she's finished. She's nobody. The world around me became a blur, my grip on the phone tightening, my breathing becoming shallow, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. This individual, this freeloader who hadn't lifted a finger since moving into my mother's home, was labeling me a burden. I wanted to disconnect, wanted to stop hearing this, but then came more. And don't even mention her. A pause, the sound of beer being consumed lazily. The kid, he continued, his voice dripping with contempt. Yeah, she was an error. Destroyed everything. My chest collapsed inward. My little sister, only 13, gentle-hearted, constantly seeking his validation, always attempting to earn his laughter. She still addressed him as dad, and here he was, declaring to someone that her existence was a mistake. Something within me broke completely. The fury arrived quickly and intensely, rising in my throat like acid, but I forced it down. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I waited. I allowed it to rot inside me, to simmer beneath my skin like a slow-burning flame. I observed him daily, every lazy stretch in that recliner, every instance he extended his hand for my earnings, every time he scowled at my sister when she asked him something simple. He believed he was invincible. He assumed I was foolish. Precisely 7 days later, when I entered the living room carrying that file, the color drained from his face so rapidly I thought he might collapse. He gazed at the folder in my hands, as if it were a weapon. I took my time, allowed the quiet to extend, let him experience the pressure of it. I wanted him to perspire. Hey, could you lower the television volume? I asked casually, placing the folder on the coffee table separating. US, we need to have a discussion. His fingers trembled on the remote, but he remained motionless. The game continued blaring, several half-finished beer bottles scattered near his chair. The odor of cigarettes and laziness heavy in the atmosphere. I watched him swallow with difficulty. What's this regarding? He asked, forcing out a laugh. You're finally giving me that promotion? I smiled a slow, knowing expression. He had no clue what was coming. I opened the folder, extracted the first document, and slid it toward him. His eyes glanced down, read the opening line, and then boom. His entire expression transformed. The cocky grin vanished, the casual slouch stiffened, his mouth opened. Slightly as if his brain couldn't comprehend what he was seeing, I leaned back, took a sip of my coffee. Shocked? I asked lightly, You shouldn't be after all. You created this situation yourself. His fingers shook as he lifted the paper, read it once more, his breathing becoming rapid. I could see the precise moment he understood he was completely and irreversibly doomed. This ... This can't be real, he whispered. I tilted my head. Are you certain about that? His eyes moved to the second page, then the third, then the fourth. Page after page of receipts, bank records, credit card statements, gambling debts in his name, the thousands of dollars he had stolen from my mother's account before she died. All of it documented, traced, connected to him. His breathing became labored. Where did you obtain this? I smiled again. I have my methods. The truth was, I had spent the previous week investigating calling the bank, examining old records, tracking every single dollar that had disappeared under his supervision. It wasn't difficult. He was careless, reckless, arrogant. And now he was cornered. He jumped up from his recliner, knocking over a beer can. Listen, we can negotiate something. No. My voice was steady, unwavering. He flinched. You're finished, I said, standing up. You've been parasitic on my income, living in my home, acting like I'm indebted to you when all you've ever done is steal. He opened his mouth, but I wasn't. Done. And my sister ... I stepped closer, lowering my voice to something dark, something dangerous. You called her an error. His Adam's apple moved nervously. I leaned in close enough to see the perspiration on his brow. She's worth 100. Of you. Silence. Thick, suffocating quiet. Then I grabbed the final page from the folder and slammed it onto the pile of eviction notice. His hands shook as he picked it up. His lips moved, but no sound emerged. You have 3 days, I said. After that, if you're still here, I make certain phone calls. And believe me, I tapped the papers. The authorities will be very interested in what I've discovered. His face turned ghostly white, and for the first time in his miserable, pathetic existence, he was speechless. He stood there, frozen like a rodent in a trap. For years, I had watched this man relax in my house, consuming my beer, running his mouth like he owned the place. But now he appeared small, like all the hot air had finally escaped, leaving behind nothing but a withered, useless shell. I let the silence linger, let him absorb it. Then I turned to leave. That's when he lost control. You think you're so clever, huh? His voice was sharp, tinged with desperation. You think you can just kick me out? I paused, turned back slowly. Did I stutter? His face contorted. The fear was still there, buried under years of entitlement, but now it was twisting into something uglier. You ungrateful little? I laughed. Directly in his face. Laughed because now I saw him for the weak, pathetic coward he truly was. Ungrateful? I repeated, stepping forward. He actually stepped backward. Good. You mean after covering the mortgage on a house you occupied like human fungus? After keeping the electricity on while you wasted money on gambling? After watching you treat my sister like she was some kind of burden while you contributed nothing? His lips pressed together. He didn't enjoy hearing the truth spoken aloud. Yeah, I scoffed. I suppose I'm ungrateful? His fists clenched. You think you're tough, think you can just... I interrupted him. You have 3 days. His nostrils flared, his beer belly tensed. And what if I refuse to leave? I smiled slow, cruel, the kind of smile that informs a man he just asked the wrong question. Oh, you will, I said, because you don't want me making those phone calls. His jaw tightened. I've documented every transaction, every stolen dollar, every unpaid tax. You think the police won't love an easy fraud case? I took another step forward, forcing him to back into the recliner. You want to test your luck against the IRS? I could see it sinking in, could see the gears in his unemployed brain turning, realizing that this wasn't just an argument, this was a death sentence. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked terrified. And I wasn't finished. I pulled out my phone, tapping the screen lazily. I'm feeling generous, though, I said. I'll even provide you with options. I turned the screen toward him. It was a Craigslist listing for his precious recliner. His mouth dropped open. You posted my belongings for sale. I grinned. Oh, buddy, everything is for sale? I swiped his TV, his speakers, his old truck. His face crumbled. I let that sink in, let him realize that every last piece of his comfort was circling the drain. You're not just getting evicted, I said. You're getting erased. He swallowed hard. You can't. I tilted my head. I already have. And the best part? I wasn't even close to finished. His hands shook as he gripped the edge of the recliner, his knuckles turning white. His whole world, the one he built with my money, my home, my mother's final scraps of generosity, was crumbling in real time. And he knew it. But instead of accepting his defeat like a man, he did what cowards always do. He lashed out. You think this house belongs to you? He spat. You think you earned it? You're just some pathetic little girl pretending to be an adult. You don't have what it takes to survive without me. I didn't flinch, didn't react, because I wanted him to keep talking. See, men like him always dig their own graves. All you have to do is hand them a shovel. He pushed himself up, eyes wild, chest puffed like he had any ground to stand on. I was the one who held this family together after your mother died. You would have fallen apart if it weren't for me. I allowed you to live here. I burst out laughing. The sound cut through his rant like a blade. You allowed me to live here? I repeated, eyes narrowing. I've been paying the mortgage for 3 years. He fell silent. You sat in that chair, drinking, gambling, doing nothing while I worked 2 jobs. You allowed me to live here? I stepped closer, voice dropping to something cold, something sharp enough to slice through the years of entitlement wrapped around his brain. I kept you here. I allowed you to stay. His face twitched, desperate for something, anything to grab. Onto. And then he made a mistake. Your mother would be disgusted with you? He sneered. Everything inside me snapped. I didn't even realize I was moving until I had grabbed his wrist, twisting it hard enough to make him stumble back into his recliner. My voice came out low, steady, deadly. Don't you ever speak her name again. His eyes flickered fear. Good. I leaned in, my grip tightening just enough for him to feel how serious I was. She spent her final years covering for you, defending you, pretending she didn't hear the way you talked about us when you thought we weren't listening. His breath caught. That's right, I had heard it all. You weren't the man of the house, I continued. You were a parasite, a leech, and now you're a dead man walking. I let go. He yanked his hand back, rubbing at his wrist like he was shocked I had actually stood up to him. That's when I pulled out my real weapon. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a key, a single, unassuming house key. His house key, his eyes locked onto it, pupils blown wide with panic. By the way, I said, tossing it onto the table, I changed the locks this morning, his face drained of all color. I grinned slow, cruel. Guess you should have thought twice before calling me a burden. He shot up from his chair, knocking over a beer bottle. You can't. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling down to my next little surprise. Also, I said, holding up the screen, thought you'd want to see this. He squinted, then paled further. It was a screenshot of an email from his gambling bookie. Subject, final notice, immediate action required. His lips parted. I saw the exact moment it hit him. He wasn't just losing his free ride, he was losing his only escape. His last debt was due, and now he had nowhere to run. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I watched as his entire world collapsed behind. His eyes, the reality hitting him like a sledgehammer to the chest. No house, no money, and now no way out. The email on my phone was a time bomb, ticking down the seconds to his downfall. Final notice, immediate action required. Translation, his bookie was done waiting. And knowing the kind of people he was involved with, this wasn't some polite, please pay your outstanding balance situation. This was the last warning before things got ugly. He lurched forward, trying to grab my phone. I stepped back. Now, I say. That's not very polite. Where, his voice cracked, thick with panic. Where did you get that? I shrugged, locking my screen. Wouldn't you like to know? The truth? It wasn't even difficult. See, when you live with a lazy, unemployed waste of space for years, you learn things. Like the fact that he used the same password for everything. Like the fact that he didn't bother deleting emails because he assumed nobody was watching. But I was always watching. I took another slow step toward him, just close enough for him to feel the weight of what I was about to say. You owe them quite a bit, don't you? I asked, voice smooth. And I bet they're getting really tired of waiting. His breathing turned ragged. Good. Which puts you in a bit of a predicament. I tilted my head, letting the words sink in. No money, no home, and now no protection. His fingers twitched. I saw the gears turning, the fight or flight instinct kicking in. But here's the thing about men like him, they're cowards. They fight when they think they can win. But the second the ground starts crumbling under their feet, they run. His gaze darted to the front door, then to the window, then back to me. I smiled. I had already thought of that. Oh, I said almost as an afterthought. By the way, I gave them your new address. Silence. His entire body went rigid. What? He breathed. I let the words settle, savoring the way his skin turned a sickly shade of gray. You heard me. I leaned in just a little, my voice dropping to a whisper. They were very interested in knowing where to find you. His breath hitched, his hands trembled, because now he understood. I wasn't just throwing him out, I was feeding him to the wolves. Pack your bags, I said softly, almost sweetly. You don't have much time. And then I turned around and walked away, leaving him sitting there in his own fear, his own failures, his own impending doom. I didn't need to see what happened next. I already knew. He didn't move at first, didn't breathe. I could feel his brain short-circuiting, trying to process just how deep the hole was that he had dug for himself. But there was no lifeline, no way out. I had made sure of that dot then dash chaos. He lunged for the folder, flipping through the pages like he could somehow undo reality if he just read fast enough. His fingers shook so badly he nearly tore the eviction. Notice. His breath turned shallow, panic bleeding into every frantic movement. No, he muttered, shaking his head. No, this isn't happening. I crossed my arms, watching, waiting. He slammed the papers down, turning on me with wild eyes. You think this is funny? His voice cracked a pathetic mixture of rage and fear. Lifted a brow, a little, that sent him over the edge. You, he roared, knocking over a beer bottle as he surged toward me. Too slow. I sidestepped him with ease, and he stumbled, catching himself on the arm of his recliner. For a second, he just stood there, panting, his face twisted in something between fury and desperation. Then he tried pleading. Listen, he rasped, voice turning fake soft. We don't have to do this. You're angry, I get it, but we're family. I laughed sharp, cold. No, we're not. His face twitched. I raised you. No, I cut in. My mother raised me. You just existed in the background, drinking and complaining and leeching off her kindness. I stepped closer, lowering my voice, and when she died, you latched onto me like a parasite. His jaw clenched. He hated the truth. You have 3 days to get out, I continued, unshaken. After that, the cops get those documents. I tapped the folder. And your little friends get a copy of where you'll be hiding. He went still, his pupils dilated. Yeah, I murmured. I did tell them about the motel. His breath hitched. Because now he knew what was waiting for him on the other side of that front door. No, he whispered. You wouldn't? I leaned in, so close he could hear the ice in my voice. Try me. A muscle in his jaw twitched. His fists clenched, then unclenched. I could feel the war happening inside him, the urge to lash out, to reclaim some illusion of power, clashing with the undeniable truth that I had already won. Finally, after a long, heavy silence, he broke. His shoulders sagged, his gaze dropped to the floor. He looked smaller, weaker, defeated. Fine, he mumbled. I'll go. I exhaled, pretending to think about it. Good choice. Then, just because I could, I twisted the knife. Oh, I added, pausing. At the door, and don't bother trying to take anything with you. He blinked. I smirked. I already sold it all. And with that, I walked out, leaving him standing there silent, ruined, utterly defeated. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I felt the weight lift from my chest. The years of resentment, of swallowed rage, of pretending I didn't hear his. Muttered insults evaporating, but I wasn't done. Not yet. I went straight to my sister's room. She looked up from her sketchbook, blinking. What's up? I smiled. We're celebrating. She frowned. Celebrating what? I leaned against the door frame. Being free. Her brows furrowed, confused, until I held up my phone, until she saw the email, the eviction notice, the evidence that the man who had made her feel like she didn't belong was finally getting thrown out like the trash he was. Lips parted. Wait, he's really leaving? I nodded. Silence stretched between us. Then, like a dam breaking, she burst into laughter. I hadn't heard her laugh like that in years, not since Mom died. And that's when I realized it wasn't just my freedom I was fighting for. It was hers too. We stayed up late that night, eating junk food, watching dumb movies, planning for a future that no longer had him in it. The next morning, the real fun began. I made sure to wake him up early, not with words, not with knocking. No, I made sure he started his day with the sound of people picking up his crap. The doorbell rang at 7 a.m. sharp. First, the guy picking up the TV, then the dude who bought the recliner, then the truck hauling away the rest of his worthless junk. He stumbled out of his room, hair a mess, eyes bloodshot. What, the garage sale? I said cheerfully, sipping my coffee. Everything must go. His mouth opened, closed. His gaze darted to the TV gone, the recliner gone. His old stereo system already loaded into someone's car. You. You little. I held up my phone. The email was still open, his bookie's email. The final nail in his coffin. He went pale. I smirked. 3 days. He stormed off, slamming his bedroom door, but I didn't care. Because for the first time in years, I felt lighter. And soon he'd be gone for good. The last day came faster than I expected. 3 days of watching him sulk, rage, pace the house like a caged animal, trying to figure out a way out of this. There wasn't one dot by the morning of day 3. The house felt different, lighter, like it had finally exhaled after years of being suffocated under his presence. And then the final blow. I waited until he was stuffing his last garbage bag of belongings into his duffel before I handed him the envelope. What's this? He muttered, barely looking at me. Your send-off gift, I said, all syrupy sweetness. Suspicious, he ripped it open. And the second he saw what was inside, he lost it. You, he roared, crumpling the papers in his fist. You think this is funny? I shrugged. A little. Yeah, because inside that envelope copies of every debt he owed, every notice, every gambling receipt, every I.O. you'd scribbled on a goddamn bar napkin, and on top of that, a one-way bus ticket. Destination, nowhere. I figured, I said, watching his hands shake. Since you've been so generous living rent-free in my house, it was only fair I help you find a new place. His breath came fast, erratic. You can't do this. Oh, but I can, I said, because I checked my watch dramatically. 45 minutes ago, the locks were changed, again. His nostrils flared. You won't get away with this. I leaned in. I already did. Then, just to twist the knife one last time, I pulled out my phone and hit play. His voice, the recording, the exact conversation where he called me a burden and my sister a mistake. His face went from rage to horror. You. You recorded. I smiled. Oh, yeah, and guess where this is going next? I tilted my head. Mom's side of the family. You know, the ones who actually liked her. I wonder how they'll react when they hear what you really thought about us. He turned ghost white because now he had no allies, no money, no safety net, nothing. And I wanted him to feel that emptiness. He clenched his jaw, trying to swallow whatever pride he had left. Fine, he spat. I'll go. I crossed my arms. Door's that way. He hesitated one last second. Then, without another word, he walked out, and when the door clicked shut behind him, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time in years, this house was ours. No more leech, no more living in the shadow of his failures. Just me and my sister, and as I turned to see her standing in the hallway, eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in a long time, relief. I knew we were finally free.